It is going to be hunting season soon, and this is the knife I made last year for hunting, and it has served me very, very well. This can still pretty much cut paper. It is erasers. Unfortunately though, there are some shortfalls. Firstly, this blade is not really long enough to do what I'm wanting to do. So today I am going to go ahead and redesign it. I will use the handle as a reference, but that's about it. So I'm going to be using a bearing raceway yet again. When it fails, that's what it looks like. You get all the balls come loose and then the bearing jams up, and then it either starts eating the outer housing or the inner housing or the shaft on the inside. And if you leave it long enough and you don't realize that it's doing it, it actually forces this thing around in a circle and it'll break out all those pieces of steel, and then the balls will fall out and you'll end up with this. Now this has been run ragged. Luckily we caught it before it broke the machine, but yeah, this bearing completely went. So what we've done is we cut this piece of steel out so that it's easier for us to flatten. The rest of the steel is easier for us to flatten. Now we're going to go ahead and weld a piece of steel onto this over here. It's not the best welding job I've ever done, but it'll do. Look at that, burning. There we are, sort of straight. Yay! This is the process I always use for flattening out steel, just because at the end of the day it does flatten out very nicely and I can really get it to the shape I want it. As the forge gets up to temp, though, you'll see that the steel will start glowing a nice red color all the way into white. I actually want it at this red color so I can flatten it out quite easily. Here we go, it's hot. Look at that, just really hot. Getting to temperature. Alright, so now what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to flatten out any of the things that I want to. You want to see how hot it is. You literally see there, it starts burning immediately. I'm just going to flatten this out as it cools down. Just want to make sure that it's nice and straight, nice and flat. Just got to let it cool down slowly so that it doesn't harden the steel. The next thing to do is to draw the knife you want. Now I've got a rough picture in my mind what I want. What I want is a knife with a handle like this, so I'm going to leave this handle exactly the same. I'm just going to trace it. What I've got to do is glue this piece of cutout onto this blade, and then we can wait for tomorrow, and then I will go ahead and cut it out properly. I glued this on yesterday. As you can see, it did give a rain a bit, but the glue is already dried again. So what we've got here is we've got my profile. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is cut this out, and I think I might even make that a bit more of a drop point hunter, but we'll see. Just trying to get that blade to the right shape. Usually use the aid of an angle grinder just to get most of it under control. So now that I've got the basic profile laid out of this particular knife, the handle's the same. As you can see, it's exactly the same. The one thing I am going to do is I'm going to create more of a drop point here. So from about here, I think I'm going to take it down to there. Cut that extra steel off. I think that would make a much more slimline knife. Alright. I like to do this with my blades, just to refine them as I go. Okay, cool stuff. That is going to be an awesome skinning knife. Next step we've got to do is just to drill a hole through there and through there. This will create where we're going to attach the handle onto the blade. Alright. We now have the holes drilled through our blade. Could put another hole there and then leave that one as a hole through the whole thing. I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to put another hole over there. So after drilling that second hole, I went ahead and I gave this thing a good sanding. Unfortunately, the steel wasn't thick enough for me to take all those riffles out. Got to decide what wood I'm going to put on here. I think I'm going to go with some wild olive. Just for argument's sake. Once I'd drawn up this profile, it was to the jigsaw. The jigsaw is probably one of the most vital tools you can have if you're busy making knives. It just gets rid of all that excess material, and it is an invaluable tool in any workshop. Such an easy saw to use, and it does such a great job. Unfortunately, the blade that had lasted my grandfather and my father did not last me. It was actually rusted through in a few different spots, but yeah, anyway, I did have a spare. And then it was on to marking for the holes. This is a very important process and one that you cannot skimp on. I like to put the two pieces together with the same drill bit, size drill bit that you just drilled through them, and just get all those pieces nicely squared up. This will help you in your next stage of aligning it perfectly. If it's aligned perfectly, it is a lot easier to stick the pins through than if it is not aligned perfectly. So this is me just having a look and making sure it is all fits together nicely, and it fitted perfectly. And now for the heat treat. This is where it can all go terribly, terribly wrong. Alright, there we are. Heat treating. Okay, we did not end up being straight. Do it once more. So a lot of people ask me, how do I know what the right temperature is? I like to try and get it up to cherry red, especially for a extremely hard steel such as a bearing raceway. This will give me enough flexibility as well as strength. Crackly putty, steel putty. Unfortunately, I didn't have the proper stuff. I usually use a resin, but this time I used putty because I didn't have any resin in the shop. So use what you have, and it actually worked out quite well. I didn't think it would, but it really, really came out nicely. So here you can see I'm just making sure that the putty is in all the cracks, as well as sticking some more wires through. This is one of the easiest ways to secure a handle to a blade. A few hits with a hammer on those copper wires and they'll spread out, and when you grind it off, it will give you a really, really nice finish. And now for the actual grinding of the handle. This takes some time to make sure that you get everything exactly the same on the one side as on the other. Here I'm just taking it down to the tang first, and then I will actually start grinding away the handle itself to make the shape I want, the desired shape. So there you have it. It is coming together very nicely. It obviously still needs a little bit of sanding and stuff, but the shape is really coming together. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to go over this with a water sandpaper and just get it really nice and smooth. I'm going to take my time over this, so I'll skip to the finished product. It is very exposed to stuff, so I'm just going to give it a wipe down with this. It's sort of like a type of varnish. just to create a layer, protective layer over the wood so that water doesn't just end up inside of it. So as always, here's the sharpness test just to make sure it is razors, and it is.